Welcome. Today's episode is about navigating Medicare in the emergency room with one of our special guests, Eliseo. I'm not going to pronounce your last name because it's probably really hard, but welcome. It has been maybe a few years that you've got on my show. So welcome, and I'm excited for what you have to share with us. So
Well, thank
really,
you
I
for having
guess
me.
yeah. So really, tell me what the major issues about Medicare that you see popping up in the emergency room.
So basically, the emergency department is very backed up. And what people, in terms of the Medicare issues, people are misunderstanding that Medicare is not forever care. Medicare is just for acute care. When you come to the emergency department, we either treat you and then we send you home, or if you're really sick, then you go upstairs. Or if you are kind of in the limbo area because we need to know more information, we keep you in the observation room in observation part of the emergency department. And then usually in about 24 hours or less, we make a decision whether to admit you as inpatient or um, send you home. Uh,
Okay.
the other thing is too, and is that because of the overcrowding, I really see we have a lot of patients in the hallways, and we have to make room for the trauma center, the trauma patients that are coming in. So while you're waiting for your lab results to come about, let's say, and you're not that critical, you don't need any telemetry, monitoring, then we put you in the hallway. And that's usually part of what I do as a hospital discharge planner, is kind of talk to you about what the next steps are so that we can safely transition you to go home or keep you into the hospital. So that's what I do in the hospital. I've been a nurse for almost 32 years now, always in the emergency department. My background is that I'm board certified in case management, as well as licensed in life and health, so that I can really answer the questions that family members and patients want to know about Medicare. That's the reason why we know each other from before, is because I also hover around the insurance agents and Medicare insurance agents Facebook groups to monitor what are the chattering, or what you issues you guys are having as independent insurance agents, so that I can notify the patients and family members with the right information and refer them back to you as independent insurance agents.
Yeah, so I think I have one question. I had a client, her husband was in the emergency room, but he wasn't quite ready to go home.
Mhm.
But they did discharge him and brought him home, but his wife wanted him to go to a skilled nursing facility. And because he was on original Medicare, I'm like, you should be able to, but I believe there was some type of new law in place that basically you have to have like a certain period of time now that you are in the emergency room to go to a skilled nursing facility. And it's just not, hey, you have original Medicare, you could go anytime you want or pick and
Correct.
choose.
Correct. So the basic criteria for original Medicare is that you need three consecutive hospital days, inpatient stays, to be able to go to rehab, whether it's acute inpatient rehab or subacute rehab. Usually it's subacute rehab.
So forgive me, I don't know. Tell me the difference between the two.
So acute rehab is needing doctor oversight, as well as 3 hours of multiple disciplines, which is the physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech. Typically, that's where you would go for if you have the stroke and you need, treatment with training for speech, walking and talking, as well as kind of knowing what to do when you get to that, um, to the bathroom, let's say. For subacute rehab, that's usually just needing 1 hour of um, therapy, right? You go to a place, a skilled nursing facility, a skilled rehab, and we term that as short-term rehab.
Okay.
and also subacute rehab. And typically that's what a lot of people will need, um, because their spouse is not able to take care of them. But with original Medicare, you don't qualify for that in the emergency department. And that is what the issue is, where I have to let them know about that issue, because even if you have original Medicare with a supplement, you don't have those 3 midnight stays and you don't qualify to go to those, to the short-term rehab facilities. But if you have Medicare Advantage, you do have that right. You don't need those three hospital stays from the emergency department. You, whether your observation or just original the emergency department patient, um, you are able to get insurance authorization to go to those short-term rehab. And for the most part, um, it's about 70% that you do get the insurance authorization to go. So it's
Wow. Yeah, I just find that quite strange. I think that's a new thing, right? Just a couple years old, probably after COVID or
uh, so no, that's what the original Medicare contract is from the government. It was, so you need those three hospital stays. But during COVID, they completely took that off. They made it even throughout for everybody.
wow.
Whether you had
Okay.
Medicare Advantage or original Medicare, they created a waiver where you basically need a physical therapy evaluation. If they recommended you to go to short-term rehab, you get to go. As long as there was an accepting facility, you were able to do that. So what I was doing during COVID was, um, during the week, I would be working on hospital discharge planning in the hospital. And during the weekend, I would remotely um, cover 4 emergency departments where I was able to kind of stave off an admission by getting a physical therapy evaluation. They would recommend inpatient rehab. We would use the COVID-19 waiver and then send them out to facilities. But what happened with, so original Medicare, with that waiver, you can go anywhere to other states, 100-mile radius. But even though with the waiver for Medicare Advantage, they only had a small network of skilled rehab facilities that would accept them. And so I couldn't get them out. So what that's the insight that I wanted to kind of let everybody know, because it's coming back again. That even though you have that short-term rehab ability from the emergency department, whether you're admitted as observation or inpatient, there is still a small handful of short-term rehab facilities that will accept you. And so if nobody's accepting you, then you still have to go home. You can't stay in the emergency department. And
But regardless of you have to be there for 3 days to get a referral to go to skilled nursing. Is that what you're saying?
no.
No.
So what's happening, that's only for inpatient original Medicare. See, this is where the confusion is. Original Medicare, you just come into the emergency department. When they finish all the testing, they either need to do more testing, so they admit you under observation status, or completely admit you as inpatient. But what's happening now is that you're not even approved to be admitted under observation status. So you still are just an emergency room patient. So Medicare is still paying for the emergency department um, visit only. So there's no way to go to skilled rehab. So we tell the patients, we can't admit you as observation. We can't admit you inpatient. Medicare is going to not pay for you to stay in the emergency department. We need the bed, so you go to the hallway if or you go home with home care, we'll set you up for a safe discharge. But a lot of people, when they're that sick, they can't um they don't have the supports at home, and that's where all the backlog is happening in the emergency department.
I see. So, like in that case, how do we advocate? I mean, if someone not like you that is advocating for the patient, just you know, there are hospitals out there that just don't seem to care. Like, how do people, seniors, advocate for this in this type of scenario? Because you think, oh, Medicare covers everything. Original Medicare, it should be better than a Medicare Advantage plan.
So what I would so I'm giving you where I'm coming from, the context. I work in Pennsylvania, in central and southeast Pennsylvania. Uh, I got my training in Southern California at Cerritos College, and then I relocated about 25 years ago. So what I'm seeing back east is exactly what's going on, actually worse in California, right?
Yes.
Um, the mindset that I would tell people is that Medicare is not enough. Medicare is not forever care. Okay. And also coming from a nurse's perspective, I'm Medicare agnostic, whether or not you have original Medicare or Medicare Advantage, um, or a combination of Medicare, Medicaid. I would like for you to get the best treatment, right? Um, what a lot of people are thinking is that Medicare is going to save you once you enter the hospital system, but the hospital system is overwhelmed um, with patients. The ER is overcrowding. So if you don't have your um, power of attorney, your support system, your other private insurance like a long-term care insurance or short-term care insurance, um, you're going to be in a world of hurt because you're going to need a way to pay for care that's not covered by Medicare. And that's what I would like to encourage people to kind of think about, um, planning. You have to take accountability and responsibility for what Medicare does not cover. And that's the main thing that I want people to know before coming to the emergency department and meeting me.
Yeah, I would say that is one of the biggest things. Most of our clients are in that sandwich generation. They still have their older parents and their younger kids, and they are turning 65. And now it's just like, how do they plan for that? Because unfortunately, Medicare doesn't cover um, for like the chronic illnesses and can't do the 2 out of 6 basic living activities. And with dementia, Alzheimer's on the rise as well. Like I've been seeing it much more often.
So the other thing that I would like to mention is that prepare. If your parents are 70 years old and you're going to be the power of attorney, or you're going to elect yourself as somebody that's going to be the caregiver, um, do these tests. Do a false test. If your parent or mom or dad or aunt, uncle were to fall down, are you able to lift them up? Do you have a backup power of attorney, advance directive person if you were to go on vacation or you really are just needing a break, a respite? Also, figure out how to pay for that care. Or if you decide to, um, if you're going to be calling off to be taking care of both sets of parents, no company is going to tolerate that. So you may lose your job. So how do you pay for that? What kind of, virtual um, job can you do that you won't have to clock in or clock out, but yet you're still, getting funds. So if you don't have long-term care insurance, um, or even short-term care insurance through you, when you're having that discussion, Do you have at least 1 year's worth of reserves to pay yourself as the caregiver? Do your parents have like a nest egg to be able to help pay for that? That's the main thing that you're going to need to figure out because bottom line is in the emergency department, we're going to say, okay, you're going to have surgery or you're going to be admitted to the hospital. If not, then you had to go home and take care of all those things that you're going to need. At home and you can't stay in the emergency department.
I see. Okay. No, those are really valid points. I've been seeing it across the board now. I've had clients that actually have returned to Southern California to take care of, their elderly mother, father, and definitely if things aren't in place, I've also had clients where they have things in place, like long-term care, but sometimes it's not even enough. They still have to,
Correct.
put up more money. And fortunately, they may have that money and sometimes not. But I mean, it's just kind of like a really like reality
It's a
that,
very complicated and I say all that with the long-term care and all that stuff, but it still requires your time as well as your money. And the other thing too in the hospitals, the ERs that I work with now is instituting, if you don't have your power of attorney and you don't have caregivers lined up, but you're say we gave you all these resources to go home, but yet you're still kind of not reassured to go home because you're anticipating that what if my mom falls again? I said, okay, that's the issue that you had to deal with a long-term care elder care attorney or file for VA claims or as well as Medicaid claims, but that you can do that at home. You don't do that in the emergency department, but if you do insist on staying in the hospital, after we given you all those resources, the hospitals now are charging $5,400 a day because you're taking up a trauma bed.
wow. So, I mean, you can stay at the hospital, but then just get charged that. I mean, usually they just kick you out.
Well, yes. So if it's still there's safety issues, and you're still insisting, or like say you're at home and you just don't want to pick up mom and dad is going to be charged $5,400 a day. And that's usually an escalation process. We tell you Medicare is not going to pay for the stay, then it goes to management, then the director, the medical director who says, yes, we agree. If you wish to go call 1-800 Medicare and Medicare says, no, we agree with the doctor, you get to go home, then we have you sign some paperwork that Medicare is not going to pay for this. So it's a lengthy process, but the bottom line is the hospitals are now charging you to stay in their emergency department.
Wow. Well, can you name the top three things you'd like people to know what to expect to do after you leave the emergency department?
Yeah, it goes back to again pre-plan. Have the um, talk, the kind candor, talk it out and ask your parents, what do you want to do if your heart stops, your breathing stops? What do you want to happen if you can't talk anymore and you can't walk yourself out to sit out in the chair in the sunshine? Those kinds of conversations. The second is, with the advent of artificial intelligence, it's going to disrupt work. And so you have to try to figure out what does work like, what is work like if your job is taken away from you. How are you going to be able to take care of your parents if they're not able to afford to pay you as their caregiver or they don't have enough funds? And what does that look like? What does a job look like? Because what we're seeing now is that 18 to 25-year-olds are the ones that are caregivers. And so
Wow.
that squeezes them out of their most productive years where they put money into Social Security and it affects them downstream. So the third thing is you really have to figure out how to take responsibility and accountability for this, because everybody's talking about the grand scheme of things. But if you can't solve your own parents or your own family's, um, emergency plan or plans after the hospital, then there's no need to talk about, world events or, the other things that are going on in the world when you don't even have your personal health, um, situations resolved. So those are the three things. I mean, there's more, but the main thing is also just um, talk to talk to you to help coordinate, how to pay for that down the road.
Definitely. And then one more question. What's the 2040 healthcare strategy? What's that all about?
So 2040 is going to be in about 15 years. Actually, it's accelerating month by month from what I am seeing in the emergency department, is that 80 million seniors are going to be 65 or years old or older, and they're going to try to get into the 80 beds just in my hospital emergency department. So what does that look like when it comes to looking for care? And that is not going to really take care of everybody. If the hospital is going to be overwhelmed with all these sick people, what are you going to do with your parents? If they come to the emergency department and they don't need surgery or they don't need the ICU, then bottom line is that they're going to be going home, and there's going to be the hospital at home program. You have to set your own med surge hospital at home, the caregivers, the 24/7 private duty care. So you need to create that for yourself. You need to think ahead 15 years from now. A lot of people probably won't do that, but the ones who need to plan, who are saying, I don't want, 15 years from now, if you're 25 and you're going to be 40, at 40 years old, I don't want to be left without a job because I have to take care of, my elderly parents. I don't want to not be able to afford to pay to take care of my children, whether in school or daycare or go to vacation. And who is going to be a backup within the family? And if my siblings are not going to be paying for it, how, who and how is going to take care of the parents? So
Yeah, that's a
you really have to
valid
think
point.
about it now, because it's going to be much more complicated in 2040.
For sure, especially the dynamics of family with just siblings and who, finance or who's actually going to take care of them. I've have heard a lot of horror stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of sibling rivalry. Somebody is going to be very opinionated, but really don't want to do hands-on care, but yet knows everything. It all comes into fruition, or kind of comes out in the emergency department. But bottom line is that you can't do both. You can't be opinionated and not be part of the solution.
Exactly. What I've heard a lot of, sibling rivalry where people are opinionated, but then yet they don't help. So it's pretty sad
Yeah.
when the situations
It
with
is.
sibling.
So there is plenty of issues coming about really quickly. And yeah, reach out to me if you have any other questions. But also the 27 statistics shows that half of the healthcare is processed through the emergency department. So that's why I'm
Wow.
seeing that. It's live streaming, and so I'm telling you what I'm dealing with at work on a daily basis, and even an hourly basis. Um, and the other thing too, if you want some uh, information. There's the ATI advisory website that has the discharge planning crisis in the emergency department, that your some of your clients who want to know more dive into the root causes of what's going on in the emergency department and kind of compare and contrast of what you're going to do with your parents if we are holding people in the emergency department or we're kicking you out too early.
Yeah, well, thank you for the insight. This is really great. Usually I talk about coverage and just how Medicare works, what plans are good, bad, benefits, but it's great
It
to
gets
have
worse than that.
someone. It's great to have someone, in the front field letting us know what's going on your side and how we could integrate that and actually plan ahead. Because I think the biggest thing is planning ahead for your future and, you know, when you become older and your family's health and future when it comes to insurance. But thank you. Thank you so much
You're
for being
welcome,
on the
Jen.
show. And, we'll look forward to having you again soon. Okay, thanks,
Thank you, Jennifer.
Mauricio.
Bye.
Okay, bye bye.